Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm wondering, like, any of you have ever had problem of like, you need really important phone call, you're waiting for that, but your battery is dead, or you really need to charge it, but you don't have the cable. Or sometimes, I have to buy once or twice because my charging cables for laptops and computers and like cell phones, because they're broken. And every time when that happens, I'm just like, can we just make these wires and all these, electronic devices like more portable? Especially, we are so heavily rely on the electronics nowadays. So can we make these wires thinner, lighter, or even it would be best if they can fix themselves when they're broken? And can we do that? Not yet, but there's a hope. And this hope doesn't come from any fancy labs from these technology companies, but they're really from this seeking muddy Danish sediment. So next slide. Yeah, so I will not explain it too much about that, but for a long time, people have been puzzled by the geochemical profiles in this Danish sediment because the only hypothesis they can make of to explain the whole profiles of oxygen, sulfide, and pH is the oxidation of sulfide to sulfate. So this redox reaction can happen not really in one place, but it's separated into two half reactions, and one is happening on the surface of the sediment, and the other half reaction is happening several centimeters down in the sulfidic deep sediment. So that sounds great. Sounds like we have a sediment battery out there, but the problem is we never find what the batteries are, or how this battery can really transport these electrons generated by oxidizing sulfide to the top, reduce the oxygen. But for a long time, people were searching for minerals and so on. But there's one day. Next slide, please.
Yeah, you also have a clicker.
Oh, clicker. Cool. So it's there's one of the scientists just all by sudden and he say, why not I just took a piece of the sediment, and then he cracked open the sediment, and all by sudden the light was right on the exact right angle, and he saw a lot of filaments inside this sediment. So what are they? And so next, how can I click on that? Okay, so next slide. So he found these filaments are really, they're moving, they were like gliding, they look like cyanobacteria, but they were not green, so they were not cyanos. They're kind of new type of bacteria. So what are they? Are they be our batteries, or can they really long enough? Because it's several centimeters in the between, right? And in fact, this new bacteria, they can really grow up to several centimeters long. I can pick up from 5 centimeter long filaments. So the distance was not the problem. And also, they're quite dense. So from 1 square centimeter of sediment, this total length of these filaments can be more than 2 kilometers. And how can we prove that they are transporting electrons? If we cut off these cables, or I'm not saying, cut off these filaments, so the previous electron potential that existed in the sediment will just be gone. So that's a big, strong evidence, and we also had other tests. So there's a big chance that we got this battery in the sediment. So next, please. And if we closely look into the structure, the surface structure has very unique, this long string-like morphology. So people believe that electrons are transported through each individual strings. And next, please. And there's one thing I want to mention. So this is a cross-section of this bacteria. And then we see these ridges around, they're the strings. And one thing very interesting is the string numbers is always like 13, 15, or 51, those odd numbers, which are not very commonly seen in nature, in organisms. So I think the next videos is gonna explain more and better than I do. So why not we just see the next video? So if you click on that, so my colleague just did a very good experiment. So he put like the incubation chambers. So one of them was fitted in like sulfidic sediment with cables, and the other one was just flushed in with oxygen, and there was a channels together. So he saw there's a fast moving and growing of these cable bacteria, and there's a lot of them. And they always trying to reach out their food, and there are also competitions. You can see some of them, they will just break on each other if they just all of a sudden cross on each other, but they're not dead. They're still trying to going back to the right position. And they always move with lasso top, like head, and trying to reach out the sulfide oxygen that they need. And they're really growing fast, and they're smart, in fact. They find the shortest cut where they can reach their food. And with that, I'll just finish my talk.